Hello, my name is Dylan Hoffman. I am co-chair and core faculty of the Jungian and Archetypal Studies Master's and Doctoral Program at Pacifica Graduate Institute in Santa Barbara, California. As we honor Women's History this month, and hopefully throughout the year, I have the privilege of celebrating the life and work of one of my favorite leaders, Gloria Anzaldúa. Chicana, mestiza, feminist, queer, decolonial, and depth psychological scholar, artist, and spiritual activist. What sets Gloria Anzaldúa apart as a leader is how her writing and life embodied ways that transgressed and transversed many of the dichotomies, divides, polarities that are at the root of many of the problems in the world today. Between nations, between genders, between sexualities, between cultures, between spirituality and materiality, between art and activism. In her essays and in her poetry, along with the other work she did, Gloria Anzaldúa found a way to name and inhabit what she called the borderland, and later in her work, Nepantla, the in-between, which refused dichotomies and getting caught in positions of being either or, and offered ways of imagining that were both and, where cultures mix, borders meet, identities are ambiguous, where spirituality and materiality are two sides of the same coin, where art is activism and activism is art. And in this way, she offered a means through the impasse that we face today in multiple avenues of life. Gloria Anzaldúa's eye for the in-between was rooted in her own upbringing. She was born in Southwest Texas in 1942, a largely Mexican inhabited area with also a dominant white populace surrounding it. This area of the country, along with much of the southwest of the United States, has a really unique history that not many people are aware of. One of the dynamics of this history is that there was a large population of both Mexican and Native American peoples in these lands prior to them becoming the United States. When the territory that covers much of what is now the southwest of the United States was transferred to the United States government, the peoples that occupied those territories were then American citizens, but were still simultaneously inhabitants of the lands of their ancestors. Gloria Anzaldúa experienced the uniqueness of these overlapping realities between culture and government, between land that was Mexican territory and then the United States, and recognized the fruitfulness as well as the suffering that came from intersectional identities for the people that experienced being both Mexican as well as American in many complicated ways. The mixing of Euro-American and Mexican indigenous identities has a Spanish word for it called mestiza or mestizo, which means mixed. For people who are mestiza or mestizo, who have mixed Euro-American colonizer, Mexican indigenous colonized ancestry, There is no option to be either or, because you always already are both and. For Gloria Anzaldúa, this mixed reality, living in the borderland, in the in-between, offers a new paradigm, a way that sees across divides, that bridges multiple realities in ways that our world suffers from a lack of. This is the reason that Gloria Anzaldúa's work is so meaningful to me personally, because I am mestizo, having Euro-American and Mexican ancestry. I grew up in the southwestern United States that shares the same history that Gloria Anzaldúa described, a history that my own family lived through and participated in. I grew up not knowing how to handle my multiple heritages, my mixedness. In my white family, I was always the other, and in my Mexican family, I was always güero, the light-skinned boy. In many ways, it wasn't until I encountered Gloria Anzaldúa's work that I found a way to inhabit my mixed reality and live in the in-between and see the opportunity it provided in the work I did and in the way I lived. Living in a town where both sides of my ancestry have lived for many generations, I learned to pick up in whichever space I inhabited for the language, the tone, the ideas that marginalized whoever was absent. I experienced being alienated in each space I inhabited, in some part of my being left out. And so I have carried that sensitivity into the work I do as a depth psychologist, which carries the same resonant idea where we look for the unconscious, the symbol, the symbolic, for the voice of what has been left out, neglected, rejected, silenced. And so Gloria Anzaldúa's work has become pivotal to how I imagine into psychological spaces and attend to what is left out in any dominant paradigm. But because I have light skin, because I appear to be only white, I have experienced the privileges of being white and have participated in the marginalization in my own mental life, in my own ideas of the marginalization of the other around me and within me. Gloria Anzaldúa's work has helped me recover in many ways the richness of my Mexican heritage, richness that was alive and well in my own family, but that I didn't have the eyes to see or appreciate. I've been able to trace my Mexican ancestry, trace its history, find its roots, which aren't far from the place I currently live in. In this way, I've gained a new depth of spirituality, a way of knowing the world that partakes of and experiences the rich mythological, religious, ritual paradigms of Mexican ancestry. And I couldn't be more grateful to the work of Gloria Anzaldúa in the way that it has helped me bridge divides in my own identity, in my own experience, in my own mind. But Gloria Anzaldúa's work is not just relevant to people like me who have mixed race heritage. Her paradigm of the borderland, of Nepantla, of the in-between, allows us to see, allows everyone to see into the multiple realities we each inhabit, between sex, gender, between race and culture. She was one of the early articulators of what is now called intersectionality, a term coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, to denote the idea that oppression can meet individuals and communities at different levels in different ways that compound and complicate each other. For example, a Mexican male may experience privileges that a Mexican female might not, simply by virtue of being viewed as a man rather than a woman, even though they share the same racial, cultural ancestry. In the same way, a white woman and a black woman may suffer sexism for being female, and yet the distinction between white and black puts them in different realms of experiences of oppression. This dynamic can also be seen in the different experiences, different worlds inhabited by the straight white male and the gay white male. Despite their commonalities, the gay male suffers ostracism and alienation and oppression that the white straight male does not. In the same way, in other communities, a straight Mexican woman and a queer Mexican woman, despite their commonalities, will experience vastly different realms of oppression and marginalization. These illustrate what Gloria Anzaldua's work is calling our attention to, providing us a more nuanced eye for the multiple dimensions of experience we all inhabit that overlap between sex, gender, culture, race, spirituality, politics, and how none of us is one thing, and all of us are multiple things simultaneously. The reason this is particularly relevant to the world we're living in now is because if each of us can find our way into the experiences, the places, the times that we've been the other in some way, and white men might be just beginning to experience what this means now. If we can inhabit that experience, know what it feels like within our own lives to be alienated, discounted, marginalized, then we can have an eye for how we are participating in that with others, grounding our empathy in our own experiences and bridging our experiences to how others in other domains of life are experiencing this. This allows all of us to inhabit an in-between. Each of us is both and therefore the antagonism between cultures, borders, gender identities, sexualities, racial identities begins to break down when we recognize the ways we participate in oppression and experience oppression. And therefore, they're not experiences that just belong to one group or the other. They inhabit each of us in multiple ways. That if we can bear in ourselves and fight the divide between those two within us, how they occupy the world in political divides, racial clashes, national wars, begins to lose its energy. This is where the work of Gloria Anzaldúa meets and enriches the field of depth psychology. One of the great insights of C.G. Jung was the idea, the reality, that what we hate most about the other are qualities that characterize ourselves, but qualities that we do not acknowledge about ourselves. What we want to annihilate and exterminate in the other are things about ourselves that we can't bear to acknowledge. And to the degree that we can become conscious of what we've split off from our own identity, we relieve the other of having to bear the animosity that belongs to our own humanity, the parts of ourselves that have been refused acknowledgement, refused a voice, and brought into our care. And this deeper vision for humanity, for the possibility, the capacity to bear all that we are, all the aspects we love, all the dimensions we fear and despise, is at the root of Gloria Anzaldua's work. I see this as a realistic optimism, an optimism grounded in capacities of the soul, capacities for imagination. And this is how I bring in the work of Gloria Anzaldua into my courses on depth psychology. And what I haven't mentioned yet is that Gloria Anzaldua herself rooted some of her work, some of her vision of the soul in the field of depth psychology, in the work of C.G. Jung and James Hillman. And therefore, the conversation between Gloria Anzaldua and depth psychology is both natural and necessary. Gloria Anzaldua was not just a feminist and queer theorist, not just a decolonial activist. She was also simultaneously profoundly spiritual. And at the center of her vision and her work is the profound realities of the soul and imagination. Gloria Anzaldua coupled the work of C.G. Jung and James Hillman with mythic, religious, and ritual traditions from indigenous Mexico. And this coupling and conversation coalesced around a term she used, Nahuatl. Nahuatl denotes both a shaman shape-shifting figure and, for Gloria Anzaldua, a capacity of the soul itself to shape and shift and inhabit multiple domains of reality. So it isn't that we just occupy and experience multiple ways of being in our outward everyday lives in terms of gender, sex, race, culture. The soul itself, for Gloria Anzaldua, is a reality that simultaneously bridges inner and outer, body and spirit, imagination and politics. In this way, there's a profound congruence between the work of Gloria Anzaldua and the work of C.G. Jung and James Hillman. For Gloria Anzaldua, the possibilities for a better world pre-exist in the soul, in the imaginal, in the invisible. And therefore, to be a true activist and artist requires the individual to traverse between inner and outward reality, between imagination and politics, between spirituality and art. For Gloria Anzaldua, this capacity of the soul for imagination, for traveling between worlds, is rooted in the power of the image. The image is something that exists in the realm of the imaginal. The image holds space for what is not yet real in outward reality. This Nahuatl shape-shifting shamanic capacity of the soul to travel between worlds, to occupy the invisible and the outward, is what gives us the possibility to bring what is not yet in the world of manifest everyday reality, a bridge. The imagination for Gloria Anzaldúa holds possibilities that are not yet outwardly expressed, and therefore the artist, the activist, must be soulful first, must be able to find images that hold capacities and possibilities that can birth things into the everyday that are not yet. This is why for Gloria Anzaldúa, there is no division between spirituality, art, and activism. They each require each other. They each demand each other. They are each dependent on each other, and each are expressions of the soul. Without the soul's capacity to enter the invisible, nothing new is possible in outward reality. The artist, therefore, is inherently an activist. What they meet in imagination and bring into the world in image and poetry and dance opens possibilities that disrupt norms and taken for granted dominant paradigms that inevitably disrupt what we have assumed to be true. This is why I celebrate the life and work of the leader, Gloria Anzaldúa, not just this month, but every day, because it demands that our spirituality touch the world, that our art changes things. And it doesn't just demand this. It shows that art is active, that spirituality and imagination disrupt by their very natures, and that for each of us to be what we truly are requires us to bridge these multiple domains of experience and multiple realities. We all must be mixed. We are in our souls always both and, always in the borderland, and that to be fully human is to be Nahuatl, to be soul, to be shapeshifter, to be a traverser of worlds. I hope what I've said today will inspire you to pick up her work and study it. Your life will be changed. Thank you.